You're listening to Punisher Waterfowls, the Union 0430 podcast. Brought to you by Real Geese Decoys, the most technologically advanced silhouette decoy on the market. First Light, the best hunting gear on the planet. Go farther, stay longer. And Ducklander Calls, tradition, education, and quality. Built to hunt.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Union 0430 podcast. This is episode 235. Hey, I know we did an episode last week of just Craig, Phil, and myself, and we admit it wasn't the best show. And you probably didn't get a lot smarter listening to it. But we're going to totally redeem ourselves this week because we brought Jimmy Muller on from Muller Chokes. And I'm telling you, this has been in the making for quite some time, Jimmy. We've been back and forth, buddy, trying to figure this out. And I'm honored to have you on tonight. And I know Phil has been, when you and I are talking and I'm letting Phil know, I was like, well, Jimmy can do this and he can do that. And Phil's like, well, I want to be on. So we got to make sure that my schedule and I can be on at the same time. So we worked it. We managed to figure it out. Jimmy, buddy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, yeah, Damien and Phil, thank you for having me, man. It's a good time.
Before we get too far into it, of course, I've got to thank our sponsors of Real Geese, Ducklander Calls, and First Light. Great brands that's been with us right from the start. And I would really appreciate if everybody that's listening, the millions and millions of fans, that you can go check out their socials, give them some love, check them out. I promise you're going to be happy with all their products because honestly, I think they're the best. And which is why we asked them to sponsor us. So, and of course, the voice of the Union 0430 podcast, Captain Jeff Coates from Pit Boss Waterfowl out of Berlin, Maryland. I think he's still out of Berlin, Maryland, but
yes,
I could be wrong.
So.
I could be wrong. Jeff will tell me. Jimmy, buddy, like I said, we've been going back and forth. You are a very, very busy man. So I cannot thank you enough for carving some time in your schedule to come sit down with us.
No, you're very welcome. I appreciate it, Damien. It's this time of year things start getting busy, you know.
Well, yeah, you just got back from the Delta Waterfowl Expo. Now, so you just got back from that on Sunday, maybe Monday. Yep. I don't know exactly. And then, and now you're planning a trip with you and your missus. You're going on a trip, and then right back. And by the time you're back, you got to start gearing up for waterfowl season. So, you know, time is a precious commodity, as they say.
Yeah, it's something we can't buy, right? So we just got back from Maryland to Waterfowl Fest down in Oklahoma City. It was a great show, as always. And I learned a lot again and got to teach a lot of people. And I had a takeaway from that show, which I just actually shot a video about today and put on my Facebook pages. But we're leaving. My wife and I are leaving Argentina. We're going to go hunt ducks, doves, pigeons, purdies, and do some golden dorado fishing. Two good friends of mine are coming. One of them is bringing his wife with him, and he's going to be doing a world slam with us, getting his 3 species on South America continent while we're there. And I've got my chokes with us, and we'll be putting them in all the guns and getting some good footage while we're there.
That sounds amazing. Argentina's got to be. It's got to be a bucket list hunt for waterfowl enthusiasts now, right? Like it just seems like every year it's getting more. It was always popular, but I think it was one time, or this is the impression I get, is that one time it was very deep pockets that went down there, but now it seems like it's becoming, you know, the average Joe can now go down to Argentina and have an amazing hunt at an amazing lodge. And just, you know, not have to sell a kidney or anything.
Yeah, it's still not cheap, but you know, I think you're right. It's a combination of things. Number one, I think people are becoming a little more economically sound, right? As we get older in our life. And, these are things I wanted to do 20 years ago. Forget about it. I barely had enough money to buy a plane ticket. So I couldn't feasibly do it. And now, even though it some things actually cost more about going down there, some of it's cheaper. And of course, we're making a little more money so we can afford to do it. But, like I told my friends, it is a bucket list. If you love to hunt, if you're a shooter like I am and you love to hunt, there's nothing like it. It's incredible.
Jimmy, you sort of kind of touched.
You're only here once.
Yep, that's right. I always tell everybody, nobody's going to care 100 years from now. And at my age, 50 years from now, nobody's going to care. So you know what? Yeah. Do it while you can.
100%. You talked about something there, Jimmy, and we've talked about it on this show a million times. And if you watch social media these days, and I can't imagine what it's like for a 15, 16-year-old kid right now that's got bit by the bug and that absolutely loves it. And then they're watching social media and they see, everybody dressed in these $1,000 waders and I do it, right? I'm wearing all this gear. I do. I wear the $1,000 waders. I've got the $600 jacket. I've got all the gear. But when I started, I was wearing my dad's overalls with a canvas jacket and probably 2 pairs of mitts on my hands just to try and keep them warm.
Grocery bags over your socks.
Yeah, the plastic bags. It seems like now, and I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but it seems like now people think they have to have the very best of the best starting off. And there's no gradual climb to, hey, one of these days I'm going to own that $500 jacket. But right now I can't do the $500 jacket, so I'm going to go with the $50 jacket. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like people have to have the top tier right now, whereas when we were going, whatever it was got us out. And again, I'm not painting everybody with the same brush, but that's the way it seems.
It's a fair assumption. Everyone wants to start at the front.
Yeah.
I started off with like $50 waders, and the very first gun I ever had was a 20 gauge 870 Express. That's where it all began.
Yep. Yeah. I think you make a good point, and I think it comes down to this. I think a lot of people, just like when it comes to shotgunning ballistics, a lot of people have listened to the wrong people, and a lot of people have listened to false information that's been spewed forward for a given amount of years. And, one thing I always teach people, you could have the $1,000 waders, you could have the $50,000 duck boat, you could have the $100,000 truck to pull it, you could have, a $20,000 shotgun, you could have all that. But if you don't know how to shoot and you can't hit the duck, what are you doing with all the rest of the stuff? So what I always teach people is it's not about the price of the gun or the model of the gun. It's not about the waders. It's not about the boat. What really matters is that you teach yourself, or somebody teaches you, the basics. And what the basics are: number one, how to safely handle a firearm. Number two, how to use the firearm good. So, I was self-taught for the most part. My dad taught me how to shoot. He was a master wing shooter. I shot my first duck flying when I was 6 years old, 1975. And, from that duck moving forward, I had a lot of difficulty hitting anything. So if I had my pellet gun or my BB gun, I could hit stuff unbelievably with no sights on it. I could hit a soda can at 30, 40 yards, right? When I was 8 years old, at every shot, I would outshoot all my dad's friends. But when it came to like shooting a moving target with a shotgun, my dad always taught me, start behind it, pass it, pull a trigger. Lead it, shoot in front. Lead it, shoot in front, in front. And I couldn't hit anything. I did good on pheasant because they went straight away for the most part, right? I shot lots of pheasant when I was 8 years old. Shot a lot of rail, marsh hens when I was 8, 10, 12 years old. But up until 1993, I really struggled with hitting ducks, crows, partridge, things like that. So I could never understand why. So I basically heard about sporting clays, and I'm like, man, this is like, golf with a shotgun. Like, it teaches you wing shooting. It's basically to simulate hunting, right? So I paid $200 to enter the Jeep Claybird Classics at Orvis Sandinona in New York. First event I ever went to, didn't know anything about it. Took my 870 Wingmaster with a fixed full choke barrel. And my dad said, "You're out of your mind. You're going to pay $200 to go shoot clays?" He said, "You're crazy." He's like, "You don't even know what this is. You don't know what to do. You don't know what you're doing." He's like, Mom and I will come with you. Let's go check this out." So we drive an hour and a half and go to Orvis. And I enter this sporting clay tournament. And I end up winning C-class and coming home with a big framed DU print with the medallion on it. And I was hooked, man.
Oh, yeah.
So I shot a 57 out of 100 and I won. And I was like, this is awesome. But the funny part, my dad being the shooter he was, right? He shot Remington Gun Club and Lordship many times. My brother worked there. They hunted all their lives. My grandfather hunted all his life. So the second station on the sporting clay course, my dad's like, "I can't believe you're entering this." The second station, he's like, "I can't believe I didn't bring my gun and enter this. This is amazing." So, make a long story short, after that shoot, my dad started competing with me all over the place. We were going to every shoot we could get to, and it was great.
Jimmy,
look, good times, man.
Oh yeah, buddy. I'm reading up about you and studying you and talking to you over the period of time we've been chatting and stuff. There was one thing that you talked about, how you were, and I love the word you chose, was I was indoctrinated at a very young age into shooting sports.
Yeah.
And you already talked about your brother and your dad. They were master wing shooters, right?
Yeah.
So how did we all know the answer, but I want you to sort of kind of explain it. Like, at that very young age, having somebody that can teach you the etiquette, right? Because that's something that I feel is somewhat lacking these days, is etiquette and gentleman rules.
Yeah.
So at a young age, in the mid to late 70s, you were indoctrinated into this shooting world. How did that, start to point you to where you are today?
So, back, oh gosh, it was probably, I would say I was probably 12 years old. And, my dad was a taxidermist. He was mounting everybody's ducks. And he had a full, in this room, he had a full museum that he called it. And he had all these display cases, like this one here I've got full of my reloading components now. But that display case, he had 8 of them down here. And they had glass. And they were all full of ducks that he mounted. He completed the Hunt 41. He completed that way before anybody even thought of that. I completed it many, many years ago before anybody created the Hunt 41. I've shot every duck on the Atlantic Flyway and pretty much everything in the country, along with a whole vast array of species I've shot all over, because my dad used to collect for the museum. So I was blessed to be able to go out and shoot everything you can imagine legally with a federal collecting permit for museums. So the only thing I had never shot was a bald eagle. Other than that, I don't think there's much I haven't shot. So I was blessed to be able to do all that. And so what happened was, going back when I was like 12, not only, I was able to identify every single bird, not only duck, but every bird on the entire Atlantic flyway from Maine to Florida and probably west quite a bit. Not only ducks, but also songbirds. Then by the time I was probably 14, I could identify all of them on the wing at a long distance. So my dad taught that, but then he also started teaching me about ballistics, about, shot size, pellets, distance, choke, and explaining to me what was ethical, what was not. So I was introduced to that a long time ago, and I was back during the lead days. I only used a 410. My dad used a 20 gauge, and, sometimes a 12 gauge. He was a big Model 12 guy, and he was an 870 Wingmaster guy with the sub gauge. So what would happen, or what transpired, was when I basically made the decision I wanted to be a better wing shooter in like 1992, I started hearing about the sporting clays. Like I just said, I entered the first event in 1993, and I was hooked. So what I did was I went out. I was already a machinist by trade. I went to trade school. I graduated in 1988 as a machinist. I was working at an aerospace defense company from my senior year on for 18 years. I was in that same company. So in 1993, when I decided to make the jump into sporting clays to become a better wing shooter like my dad, I bought 2 modified chokes from the biggest choke manufacturer in the world, or the best known one at the time. And I bought an over and under. I bought all these things because I wanted to go in with both feet and be the best I could be. And I didn't want to doubt my equipment. I wanted to know that if I screwed up, it was me, not my gun, not my chokes, not my ammo, right? So I go to this company. I buy 2 modified chokes because somebody said, just buy 2 modified chokes, put them in your gun, and forget about it. Just shoot. So I did that. I go out on a patterning board. I go out and I shoot at some targets. The targets were breaking very inconsistent. I figured it was me. I start shooting paper, and I'm like, what is going on? I've got 2 of the same chokes in my gun, but one is giving me like a skeet pattern. It's like huge. And the other one's giving me like a full choke pattern. And I'm like, oh my God, they must have marked the chokes wrong. Being a machinist, I figured that's the obvious solution, right? Because they only electro etch them, right? So they probably took a skeet choke and marked it modified, and they probably took a full choke, marked it modified. I got 2 bad chokes. So I go in the shop the next day and I mic them both. And they're both exactly 20 thousandths from my barrels, which is modified, right? As it's defined, which we could talk days about, which is bogus, but we could get into that. So they're both 20 thousandths from my bore. And I'm like, oh my God, my barrels are bad, right? What else could it be? So I take the chokes out of my barrels. I shoot threads at the paper, meaning no chokes in the barrel. And no, that won't hurt your threads. That's myth. So I take the chokes out. I shoot threads at the paper. They both pattern the same, both barrels. Point of impact's good. Patterns are the same. I'm like, what is going on? I put the chokes back in, change barrels, change ammo, same results. Big old pattern from one choke and a tight pattern on the other. So blows my mind. I go in the shop the next day and I'm like, I've got to measure everything on these chokes and figure out what's going on. Well, sure enough, I start measuring roundness, cylindricity, squareness, length of taper, length of parallel, gas skirt clearance. Well, guess what? They're both totally different. So immediately I learned a choke is not a choke based on exit diameter, which to this day people go by, right? It was the geometry in the choke that created the pattern. So now I'm like, oh my gosh. So I can't just make a choke tube for the gun because I have no idea how it's going to perform if I give it 10 thousandths or 20 thousandths or 30 thousandths, right?
Yeah.
this proved to me that it didn't matter much. So that opened up a dumpster of worms. So what I did with the gun I was using at the time, which was a Browning, I went in the shop and I made a couple chokes. I shot them. The patterns were amazing. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just got really lucky here, or there's something I'm not seeing. So what I do, I go back to the same company and I buy 8 more modified chokes. I get them in, I measure them all, I group them based on the geometries. I put them in the gun, I shoot them, and they're all over the place. My point of impacts are off. My patterns are different. I'm like, this is just insane what I'm seeing. Then I did it with the factory chokes, and I was getting something similar. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, what is going on? Well, come to find out, the company I bought the aftermarket chokes from make the factory chokes for this company. So I'm like, well, that explains a lot. But one is extended choke, and the factories are flush mount. Why are they all so different? So, make a very, very long story shorter, I contacted the owner of the choke company. I explained to him the geometric tolerances I was getting, explaining to him what was happening, and trying to talk to him about what I found. And I asked him if I could send them back to him for a refund if I could only keep the 2 that were good. And he said, you bought them, you own them, kid, and he hung up. Right. So my dad called him and tried. My dad was a master toolmaker also, by the way. My dad calls him up because he saw what I measured, talked to him or tried to talk to him. The guy started swearing at my dad, yelling at him, and hung up on my dad. So my dad took the chokes, threw them in garbage. He said, go in the shop and go make your own chokes. So I did. So that's what got me going on the whole choke thing, right? And then go ahead.
No, so the thing, so I sort of kind of knew that side of the story, but the thing that really got me, and I wish Craig was here on with us tonight, because Craig really likes this technical stuff. But when you were working in that machine shop, you really started to get involved in, or started to study. Now, you talked about the geometry of the choke tools, but the I'm going to say the word wrong. I know I am. Metallurgy. And you really got into that. And as I'm reading, you incorporate a ceramic into your metal, or I don't know how you do it, but could you explain it and why you do it that way?
Yeah. So my patented Featherlight clay target chokes, I machine them out of solid aerospace aluminum. That's very strong. You can put them in your gun and shoot them. But because it's aluminum, they'll eventually wear out and they'll get filthy dirty because it's a very malleable material, right? Yeah. So then what I did was I infused them with a military ceramic hard coat all over the choke, all surfaces. And what that provides is a very slick surface, like a nonstick frying pan. So nothing can stick to it, meaning no plastic buildup, no carbon buildup. So you never have to clean a choke tube again. And then it's also extremely hard. It's like 62 Rockwell, like a knife blade or a drill bit. So it will never wear out. It's way harder than your barrels, way harder than any shop material out there. So basically half the weight of titanium, a third of the weight of steel. They're perfectly clean. They're hard. They're totally corrosion proof in chemicals and in salt water. So it has all the makings of a perfect choke. Now, that's my clay target choke. And the reason I say that is because I developed it, invented it, and designed it only to be used with lead target loads or bismuth target loads. You could also use steel 7s in them. But the reason that you can't shoot big steel or really big lead turkey loads or buckshot or slugs through it is because even though the surface is the hardest in the world, it's still an aluminum substrate. So what'll happen is the choke could swell and get tight in your gun. So that's why it's a dedicated clay target choke for target size loads. Now, that choke tube built the Mueller brand and revolutionized clay target sports all over the world in a very short period of time. I wanted to come out with my hunting choke many, many years ago because I had invented it back in 93. I had perfected it in 93. But I had never had an intention of selling a choke tube my entire life because I was in aerospace defense manufacturing, making a lot of money, doing very well, making helicopter parts and aerospace parts, right? Well, in 2008, when the economy tanked, I lost all 53 customers in aerospace. So I had a huge mortgage, a machine shop payment, two young children, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I knew that I had the best choke tube in the world because I made it that way for my own advantage. I fixed every deficiency a choke tube had. And because of that, I had confidence I could patent it, bring it out of the closet, and it would help pay the bills. Well, I did that, and it literally just exploded. It took off. So from 2009 to about 2020, I had no available time to make the hunting chokes that I had invented previously many years ago and perfected. So in 2021, I basically said, you know what? I've got enough capacity now to make enough of the clay target chokes and also start to make the hunting chokes and start to bring that to people's knowledge and try to help hunters. And that's what I did.
Wow. Well, I know, just when I was doing my reading and stuff about you, like back in the day, and I know there's a bunch of people that don't remember the forums and stuff like that, but you pretty much crashed one of the forums because once word got out about your choke tubes, like the forum administrator was like, listen, you can't be on here anymore. Like you're killing us. We can't talk about anything else. You got to get your own site.
Yep. Shotgun world, man. I blew it up. And it was something I didn't even post about. It was other people posting.
Yeah.
And, it was incredible.
But that's got to be something, when you sit down and you're, you make it for yourself, like your dad said, throw them in the garbage, go out, make your own chokes. You make them, you're happy with it. You're confident it's the best in the world. And then, you're sharing it with your friends and the people that you're shooting with. And then it starts to blow up. Like that's got to give you a huge boost of confidence when you're wondering, well, do I want to take this step? That's a huge push in the right direction, right?
It was. And the thing was that was great about it was there was no other direction. Because like in 2008 when when the economy tanked, literally not only did I lose the 53 aerospace defense customers and also medical customers, I had friends in those companies that were the purchasing agents. And they were like, Jim, we cannot give you any work. We're struggling ourselves. Multi-billion-dollar corporations, right? So I'm like, okay, I started reaching out to places like John Deere and Harley Davidson and all these outside avenues trying to make commercial or even domestic custom parts to try to come up with something. Nobody would even come close to giving work. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So this was the thought that hit me. I knew that it was amazing, but I didn't know if people would respond to it. I didn't even know what size the market was. I didn't know if it would even help me pay my mortgage. Right. And when I introduced it and it took off the way it did, I'm like, this is going to work. I can do this. And I just went full bore, man. I just dove in with both feet.
I love it. Philly, I know you got stuff that you're going through your head. You're a big shotgun guy. Go for it, buddy, because I've been picking.
I've got
Jim's brain here.
like 1,000 comments, questions, everything, you name it.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Jimmy, like when it comes to chokes, obviously you might and if anyone that knows myself, like I'm a huge sub gauge guy, like I'm a 20 gauge guy through and through, and preach the importance of patterning. And everyone knows how important patterning is. What is your thoughts on that?
So the way that we have conventionally or traditionally patterned really doesn't tell us much of anything. And I refer to shooting patterning plates and patterning paper. So I know a lot of people balk at me about this and they try to prove me wrong, or well, they don't even try to prove me wrong because they can't, but they tell me I'm wrong and they tell me it's not true and how else are you supposed to do it? And what I try to teach people is listen, I've shot probably more paper than any single individual alive. I could pretty much confidently say that. I did 12,000 patterns on paper in 2.5 years through 22 different guns, 13 bore diameters, every ammo on the market, through every choke on the market. I shot ammo that doesn't exist anymore. I shot chokes that don't exist anymore. I even shot guns that don't exist anymore. So I've done it. So what I learned through all of that is when you shoot one-dimensional paper, you could call it two-dimensional if you include where the pellets came out the back. It's one dimension, right? The only two things you know when you shoot paper is your point of impact, which is good to know. It's important to know if the gun fits you or if you're doing anything wrong, like, flinching or lifting your head or jerking the gun, or if your mount is inconsistent, right? Which a lot of us it is because we don't practice. It shows your point of impact, just like shooting a rifle. It shows you where the center of your pattern's sitting over and over again, right? So you could adjust your stock or you could adjust the way the gun fits you, whatever have you. So it shows your point of impact, very useful. And it tells you that every projectile in that shot shell, whether it's a BB, a slug, a buckshot, every pellet in that shot shell, it's going to go through that paper. But what we don't know is how it got there or when they got there. We have no idea. Okay? So we'll go down a rabbit hole here for a second because it's worth talking about.
We love rabbit holes, buddy.
We talk about yeah, man. So we talk about 70 to 100 pellets inside a 30-inch circle to be consistent and ethical to kill a duck-sized bird, right? So that's good. That gives us something to go by. So if you let's go with 100 pellets in a 30-inch circle just for a round number. So that's great. So if you got 100 pellets inside a 30-inch circle, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to kill a duck at that distance, provided you got enough energy in the pellets and all that. So let me tell you, if you have 100 pellets in the shot shell, that means you should have 100% pattern inside a 30-inch circle at whatever distance you choose to shoot it at. However, if you have 400 pellets in that shot shell, you should have 300 pellets outside the 30 inches to be able to give you a larger margin of error so you can still hit the duck but still kill it just as if it was inside the 30-inch circle. But everybody's got so tied up in talking about 30 inches, they have 600 BBs in a TSS number 9 and they think that they all need to be in the 30-inch circle. They don't think for themselves. They only listen to what's being promoted. So paper shows you how many pellets are in the shot shell because they're all going to go through the paper, and it shows you point of impact. Here's what it doesn't show you that's important. It does not show you shot string length. It does not show you the outside fringe or the efficiency of the outside fringe. It does not show you shot-to-shot deviation. And the reason it doesn't show you all of that is because it's not three-dimensional. It's just one-dimensional. So if you were to take some patterns that look picture perfect on a piece of paper, and then you were to take some patterns that look splotchy with holes in them and big, something we would consider not good. If you take a pattern that looks really good, let's say it's only 20 inches in diameter, we would call that tight and uniform, and it's going to be deadly. Then you take a pattern that's 34 inches that's got some holes in it, doesn't look very good, we throw that out, we're like, we're not using that, it's horrible. You take those two combinations, go shoot a duck or a decoy on the water at 30, 35 yards. The one that looks amazing is possibly going to be a long string of spaghetti on the water with a 30 to 40 foot shot string. you're not even going to hit the duck after 5 shots. If you do, it's a miracle. You take the pattern that was 34 inches with holes in it, it was a 6-foot long shot string, or maybe 9 feet. It's an explosion on the water. The duck is dead, one shot. So how can you tell me that shooting paper, you know what you're seeing? You don't. So stop doing it. Okay? You know, like my dad always said, if you feed the dog and every time he bites your hand, are you going to keep doing it? No, you're going to stop feeding the dog, right? So if you keep shooting paper and it tells you nothing, why do you keep doing it? It makes no sense to me. The only thing that makes sense is that people really truly believe they see something useful. So I've been trying to preach this to everybody I can to teach them it does not tell them what they think they are seeing. It isn't. Okay? And that's just the truth of it. I've learned this after, like I said, 12,000 rounds on paper, and then taking those same choke combinations, ammo combinations, gun combinations, and going and shooting horizontal mud and water and decoys and bobbers and lobster pot buoys and live pigeons and live crows and clay targets and ducks, farm raised ducks in a controlled atmosphere from 10 yards to 110 yards, shooting pheasant out of tower out to 110 yards. I've done it. So people cannot tell me, well, you're wrong, because I shoot paper and it looks amazing and that's what I'm using and I kill ducks with it and there's nothing better. Well, that's good, but there is something better because you don't have what you think you have. You know? So that's what it comes down to. People just need to really listen and try to learn and try to do things different rather than doing what is spewed forward from the 1950s from their coaches, their mentors, their parents, their grandparents, their buddies that know nothing but think they know everything. They need to think for themselves and start to do things like some of the ballistics experts are talking about and see what they get. You know, when people come out and hunt with me for a first time, or even people that have hunted with me several times, when they see the things that I do, it blows their mind. But when I teach them why, and then I allow them to do it for themselves, it's like a whole nother world opened up for them. It's like they're reborn again, you know, they're excited about it instead of just doing the same thing and just struggling. So that's why I do what I do, to help people.
Keep going, Philly.
True story.
True story.
Yeah.
Keep going, buddy.
I think a lot of things that people miss though is, again, like that third dimension, the shot string. Like everyone gets hung up on that sexy, you know, picture on paper, which I've been guilty of. 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember exactly. Yeah. I had bought I'm a huge Benelli guy. I had bought a Ethos Cordoba 20 gauge, which came with a 28-inch barrel. And I had one of the OG M2s with a 26-inch barrel. And I was like, I came into a whole bunch of new ammo and stuff from a company that I do some work with. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out and have a big patterning day. I'll do some pictures, like some content creation and shit. And it was amazing to see like, again, we're just talking 2-dimensional here, or 1-dimensional, whatever you want to call it. But the differences between running 2 guns, same manufacturer, idealistically the same barrel, but a 26-inch barrel versus a 28-inch barrel, both 20
which
gauges.
Doesn't matter. Yep.
I think I ran, I want to say 5 different chokes. Yeah, I think like five or 6 different chokes. A couple of them were aftermarkets. A couple of them were OEM chokes, flush mount, extended, whatever. And the variation between the 2 guns, so like say, get your 2 guns, same choke, same ammo, the differences between the 2 was astronomical.
Yes.
And like whether you want to call it whether it was the 2 inches of barrel that made the difference, or what, but like,
Yep.
I can't stress enough to people about patterning their gun. And I had what I thought was like a proven, and again, it was like my own fault. It was an unpatterned system I was running between my M2 and this particular choke, this particular round. I was hands down lacing out big Canadas of 40 yards all day, non-issue.
Yep.
I mean, like, not dropping geese and wounded. Like, I was killing big Canadas at 40 yards. And then I ran this little bit of an experiment. And, okay, like, actually, I haven't patterned this yet. I want to see what this does. And I shot this particular pattern on paper, and I was like, wow, that looks like shit.
There you go.
Hands down. That looks like shit.
Yep.
But again, that was just my own visual interpretation of, again, the paper.
Yep.
You know, who knows what shot string was, whatever. But I'm like it was an eye opener looking at like this has worked time and time again for me for like the last 5-6 years. Like I'm like, I refuse to deviate from this. Like, this has just been like the golden ticket for me. And then I physically see it on paper, and I'm like, I don't like what that looks like. But it reverts back to what you said, like, you know, the difference between like your super, super tight shot string, but being a mile long versus, it's all blotchy and stuff, but you get that shorter, tighter shot string, which I guess kind of relates into almost like the wad stripping style chokes, which it's not for me, but.
The wad stripping chokes, we've determined through proof, through high-speed photography, that they actually created the longest shot string because it actually elongated it as it was coming out. You know, a lot of people think that if you get the wad away from the shot column early, it makes the pellets fly better, but that's not true. What happens is the sooner you get the wad away from the shot, the sooner the shot opens. Because it's in the air, the physics of air resistance. If you keep the pellets in the shot cup the whole distance, it's a slug at 100 yards if you don't slit the wad. But if you make a wad very thin and flexible and you peel it back immediately, and the shot is separated from the wad 4 feet, 6 feet out of the muzzle, well, guess what? The shot's already free. It's starting to open already. So if I'm shooting ski, or I'm
like
shooting
swimmers going for that egg.
Yeah, if I'm shooting something inside 25 yards, that's what I want. I want high velocity to spread it open fast. I want it to get there when I pull a trigger, and I want it to spread out fast because I want it to open, right? If I want to shoot a duck at 40, 50, 60 yards, I don't want it to start opening at 4 feet. I want it to start opening at 25 yards. And this is something, again, that a lot of big ammo companies don't even acknowledge because they don't even want to learn the truth about ballistics. If you go back to Tom Roster and Bob Brister and even other people from Winchester, when they did this testing with unslit wads, 2 slits in the wad, shorter slit wads, 3 slit wads, 4 slit wads, they have it all documented. It's not reinventing the wheel. Go look at it. It's there. It's proven. I've done it myself. If you take a wad and you don't slit it, it's a slug at 100 yards. If you take the wad and slit it 2 times, your pattern is way tighter at 50 yards than if you put 4 long slots in the wad. Same wad, same hull, same powder, same primer, same shot, same gun, same choke. But for some reason, ammo companies want to think differently. So that's to them. So
I think there's a little part of that, like, and I'm not going to get into naming names, but there's gimmicks, right? Like there's these little gimmicks that they throw out. Well, this is going to make the difference to your shot, and then you go out and you spend premium dollars on this because of the new gimmick, and then you're like, well, this does nothing. There's no friggin' difference, or it's worse than what I thought. Jim, I wanted to talk about, because we've got about 15 minutes left. I wanted to talk about, because I have a decoying choke on its way to me right now from you, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So could you explain?
Awesome.
Can you explain the passing, the 3 chokes that you have for waterfowl?
Yeah, so I have 3 constrictions primarily. It's called decoy for shooting
Yeah,
over decoys. I like to say out to 35 yards.
yeah,
Then I have the passing choke, which is beyond that.
yeah.
It just makes it easy. If you're shooting steel or bismuth, the decoy and passing choke, right? That's all you need. The decoy out to 35, and then the passing. The reason I say beyond that is because the patterns that the passing generates will actually outperform the distance and foot-pounds of energy of steel or bismuth. So that means as far as you can possibly shoot, the passing will supersede that.
Oh,
So I tell people, don't waste your money on a UFO. I don't want your money. I want your happiness. So
right.
don't buy a UFO because you think you want the tightest choke I make or you want the tightest pattern. The only reason we feel that way before Mueller came along is because there was not a full choke or extra full choke that gave us a pattern worth a darn. They either were too tight with the wrong geometry and they blew the pattern. We would have been better off with improved cylinder choke.
Mm-hmm.
Or it did perform really good and it was so tight we couldn't hit anything, or when we did, we blew it apart.
Yeah.
So either way, you don't want that. So my decoy choke is the most influential, most positive, most helpful pattern that we've ever seen in our lives in a hunting gun. When it comes to steel, bismuth, heavy 12, tungsten, it doesn't matter. It's incredible. It's forgiving close in your face, and it's very capable at 35 yards, and even then some, depending on the ammo. I've paper bagged mallards plentiful shooting a decoy choke and steel shot at 45 yards.
I
So
can't wait to get my.
it's not about, hitting them with one big pellet. It's about putting a bunch of pellets on the front of the bird. And
Yeah, no,
that's what the decoy choke does.
absolutely,
Density
buddy.
kills.
Yeah, and I can't wait. I'm headed out to Saskatchewan for another guiding season, and once the season's over, I'll actually get a chance to sit in the blind myself and do some shooting. I
Yep.
can't wait. And I don't know if you remember, but you and I met back in Baton Rouge last year at the Delta,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good friend of mine and Phil's, Mirko Cunha, and Mirko had wanted one of your chokes, and I was like, okay. And Mirko's a big shooter, right? Spends a ton of time at the gun club, shooting pigeons, shooting crows all the time, right? And a great shooter. And he's like, hey, you're in Baton Rouge? And I was like, yeah. And no, actually, he asked because I have an American mailbox. And he said, can I get a choke tube sent to your mailbox? You pick it up and send it to me. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So that's what we done. And then it was a week later, I'm down in Baton Rouge. And I was like, why didn't I just buy it at Baton Rouge instead of getting you to send it? So we done a fun video with Mirko and we sent it off to him. But I remember hearing Mirko talk about how impressive or how impressed he was with your chokes, and I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
when a guy like that is telling me and he's the type of guy that doesn't go around beating his chest about stuff, right? Like he
Yep.
knows what he likes and he uses what he likes and what works for him. But then he starts telling me about this choke, and I'm like, oh boy, this is
Yep.
interesting because I need all the help I can get. So,
Yep.
and then now I look at Stephen BLO and Ashley Berta, who are friends of ours. They're using your chokes. It just
Yep.
to hear your story from where you started, why you started it, you identified a problem to get to where you are today. it's amazing, you know, when you really think about it. And then anybody that's sitting here listening, they have to, like, if there's somebody listening to this show and they have an idea in their head saying, well, I think if I did this, I could make that product better. Listening to this show with you and how you went about doing it, it has to give them the confidence to go ahead and try it.
Absolutely.
Like, why wouldn't you?
Yep. It was a tremendous undertaking. I had no idea how big it was going to be, how long the road was going to be, how much testing it was going to take. It was mind-boggling. And, you know, I've shot over 1 million clay targets in my life. I've shot hundreds of thousands of birds. I mean, I've shot a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so through that entire time, pretty much from 1993 to today, I've been developing, right?
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I developed back then, but every time that a new ammo comes out, I test all my chokes and make changes. I try to make it better. Every time a new gun comes out, I call a company and I'm like, hey, man, I need to buy a gun because I need to test chokes on it. And if it's not as good as it needs to be, I tweak it. So I'm constantly changing and making things better and better. So even though I made the best chokes in the world, I'm constantly making them better, right? As technology changes, ammo, barrels, guns, all this. And, you know, one thing I wanted to talk about quick, I know that time is rolling.
No. We can go overtime if we need to.
Yeah. I want to talk about the whole patterning on paper thing. One thing that's really important to understand is if we look back, if you Google define shotgun pattern, you're going to see that it is defined as percentage of pellets inside a 30-inch circle at 40 yards. Full choke, 70% of your pellets inside a 30-inch circle at 40 yards. Modified, 60%. Improved cylinder, 50%. Skeet, 40%. Okay? That is a fine definition. Point blank, there it is in black and white. Well, here's the problem with that. It's false. And all these years from God knows when, 1940s, 1950s, I don't know. But somewhere in that range is when this was all figured out. And this is what people still go by, Damien. And let me tell you something. Back in the day, when people used full choke for trap, those guns, those chokes, and that ammo gave you a 28 to 30-inch pattern on average on a 16-yard trap target. Today, with a full choke that's actually a good full choke, with today's ammo, you're shooting a 12-inch pattern at that same distance. So full choke then is not full choke today. The ammo back then is not the ammo today. The barrels back then are not the barrels they are today. So if you take that definition of patterning a shotgun, 70% of pellets in a 30-inch circle at 40 yards is defined as a full choke. Okay? So let's look at that. Let's take a 1-ounce lead target load with a full choke in the gun, which is 30,000 from your bore, shoot the paper, and let's say we get 70%. Exactly what a full choke is defined as. Now, let's take and just change the velocity in that shot shell and nothing else. Now you're down to 60%. Is it still a full choke? Yep, still a full choke in the gun, but guess what? Not a full choke pattern. It's now a modified.
Yeah, by definition, it's now a modified choke. Yeah,
that's right. So now change the shot size, change the velocity, change the payload, change the pellet count, change the wad, change the powder, change the primer. Every single change you make, change the crimp depth. Go from a 6 crimp to an 8 crimp. Every single time you change something, the ballistics change.
Of course.
So how can you, in God's world, tell me that if you have this one choke tube that's 30 thousandths in this gun,
Yeah.
And all of those guns with 720 bore to 777 bore, it's a full choke. It's absolutely, it's humorous. I mean, it's so stupidity. There's so much stupidity even associated with thinking like that. I mean, how could you even think that it's true? But everybody goes by it.
And I get what you're saying, but and to add on to that is that if you spoke to, and I'll throw the word out there, the majority of shooters, they will all say that every gun is different. You've got to learn what's going on with that gun, and then same as what you're saying, the ammo is different, the choke tubes is different. All of those things are different, and they'll all affect what works for you may not work for me, and what may not work for Phil. But then you'll turn around and say, well, this is what it is. Well, no, you're contradicting yourself in what you're saying.
That's correct.
You know
what
you
don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Like, I'm not I am a Cro-Magnon man, right? Like, I am a Neanderthal. I do not think like these things, and all I want to do is I expect when I pull my gun up and I shoot. Now, if I just straight up miss the bird, that's on me. But I buy what I think is a quality ammunition. I buy a quality firearm and now a quality choke tube. I'm doing all my things that I can do to increase my chances. Now, is that going to buying a gun, ammo, and a choke tube? Is that going to put birds down for me? Not at all. I still got to be able to know how to shoot and how to lead and all of that. But I've got to, I guess this is a long way of saying, it's my responsibility to make sure that I have the right tools. It's not that I don't care. It's just I can't remember all that stuff. I don't remember shot string and 10,000s and 20,000s. I don't remember that stuff. I just want to be able to screw something into my gun and go, I know this is going to kill birds out to 35 yards. That's all I care about.
And that's exactly why I created what I did, Damien, because I know that about hunters, right? Because I'm a hunter, I'm a shooter. So I knew that if I could perfect choke and explain to people what it is, hence the reason I don't call my chokes improved cylinder modified full. I call my chokes decoy passing UFO. The reason that I do that is because I want people to identify it as something different. I don't want them to go with the old traditional, conventional, obsolete way of thinking of this is modified, because no, it's not, based on what I already talked about today. Okay. What I want them to understand is I've done the work for them. I've already reinvented the wheel on chokes. I've done more testing than they can ever do. Okay. It's already done. So when you get a Mueller decoy choke, you already know that if you're shooting steel or bismuth, you are solid out to 35 yards with the best, biggest, most efficient pattern you could have. If you're shooting past 35, you just go to passing. You've then, again, have the best efficient pattern from 35 out as far as you can imagine pulling the trigger. If you're shooting steel, it's as far as steel will go. I will give steel a 45-yard distance max, because there are really good steel loads that will do that. Okay? Regardless of what everybody will tell you, I can prove it. Then a little further than that, if you could keep bismuth together, if it's made and loaded right, give it another 10 yards for bismuth. So call it 55 yards. The moment you exceed that 55-yard mark, you must go to a heavy 12 or a heavyweight 13 or a Spheros 15 or a TSS 18. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yeah, my buddy killed that snow goose 70 yards going away with a steel 4. It's possible, but you're not going to do it very often. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. And the 70 yards that you said your buddy killed it at, it was 42. It wasn't 70. Okay, go get a rangefinder.
Buddy,
So,
you are speaking our language right now, because Philly,
yeah,
how many times have we talked about fellas that have said, "Oh, crushing them at 60 yards," and you're like, "No, you're not. You're not killing birds at 60 yards. I know you're not. I know your ability. You're not."
Yeah. And it's the same guy that you take out to Cape Cod, stick him on the beach, shooting an eider at 25 yards, going by the decoys, and they're 6 feet behind him every shot. Yeah, you're killing snow geese at 60. Okay, dude. Love to watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Philly, did you have anything else, buddy? I jumped in on you and sort of kind of cut you off there.
Well, I'm having gross technical difficulties, but in fairness, if you can't decoy birds into 20 yards, you're clearly doing something wrong.
That's right. You know?
Like,
I mean,
so we've got a friend, Jim, a friend of ours here, a local guy, who is an amazing hunter, straight up killer, and a great shot. And he is the dude that says it doesn't matter ammo. He swears by it, right? He was like, it don't matter. He said, I'll buy whatever ammo, the cheapest I can find, whatever's on sale. He doesn't care the brand, does not care anything about it. He'll buy what he can afford.
Yep.
But he is confident in his shotgunning skills, his platform, his weapon, and his choke tube. And he knows what. Now, I'm sure he does some practice shots and patterns and the whole.
And he limits his distance. Yeah,
that's right. But
yep.
You're 100% right. And I've followed you for a number of years, right? So this stuff is not new to me, because I've heard your theory on the one-dimensional patterning and stuff like that. So it all makes sense to me. I'm with you. I think it all makes sense. Yep. I just, for me, looking at Muller Chokes and what you're doing now, and then from the competition side to now the hunting side, which you're focused on. You always were doing it, but now I think people are drinking the Kool-Aid that you're selling, right? Like because people are buying into it, and they're like, wait a second, Jimmy might actually be onto something here. Maybe the machinist actually knows a thing or two about cylinders and geometry and shot string and all of this stuff, right? So buddy, I think it's amazing, and I don't even think we scratched the surface tonight on questions. Philly, what do you think?
Oh, 100%. Like this, there will be a follow-up episode.
There gotta be.
Yeah, we have tons of things that we could talk about.
Yeah, and then I wanted to talk about this, Jim, because I wanted you to talk about this, because I didn't know anything about it until I started going through your page today. So just bear with me as so this video membership, the monthly and annual video membership, and I think you guys can see this on the screen right now.
Yes,
and
we
for
can.
The people that are listening and not watching on YouTube. So Jim, can you talk about this mastery video membership that you're offering up to people, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, so basically, I obviously have a lot of information, right, through all my testing and everything. So what I decided to do was, rather than keep it all to myself, I want to share it to people to help them. And I figured the best way to do that is shoot a bunch of videos, put them into a membership video library that you could pay for monthly or yearly, and you have full access to all of those full-length videos that I've put out there. Originally, my thought on that was to do hundreds of videos and just keep adding to it. Right now, I've got approximately 67 full-length videos on there, and you have full access to every one of them for a lousy $24.99 a month. If you want to binge watch them, you could watch them all in 1 month and pay $25 and you're done, right?
Yeah.
But you also have the opportunity I mean, in my opinion, any one video is worth $25. And right now you're getting 67 of them. So it's a tremendous deal. And I'm going to continue to shoot videos like I did today, put them on there, and there's always going to be new information on there along with all the stuff I've already put on.
Well, for people that are watching, it's MullerChokes.com, and you jump on and everything you need to know is right there. So with regards to the chokes, the video memberships, the accessories, and then the swag, and also the blog and the content. If you have questions, and if there's something that Jimmy talked about on here and you're just like, well, I don't really understand what he means, why, shoot him a message. Like, if you haven't picked up on the fact yet that he is here to try and help you, then you've missed the boat on this episode. So, Jim, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I would hazard to believe everything you've said when you're talking about the amount of testing and everything that you've done. We'd be foolish not to pick your brain. Honestly, that's just the way it is. And I think that, like Phil said, I think another appearance is required to come back on. And actually, once I get my choke and I get some rounds down through it, and I'd love to get back on, because I want to get the other two as well, and then have them with me, right? But yeah, buddy, I love it. I love it. Philly, did you have anything, buddy? I'm sorry, I'm long-winded tonight.
No, it's all good, buddy. It's just, I guess, like we were at that time. So if we want to start around the table, but again,
go for it.
It's the absolute honor to have you on. Like, your chokes have been like a front runner name in shotgunning, hunting, you name it, for like the longest time, longer than I've been hunting. I know that. But again, it's an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show, and just knowing the science and the backing that you've put into producing an amazing product, as opposed to here's a round tube to put at the end of your shotgun. You've obviously put a hell of a lot more science and thought and effort into developing this, and again, shooting God knows how many different guns, God knows how many different rounds, you name it, and it is clearly seen that you're doing it for the betterment of the shotgunning world and the hunting world. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what means the most. And thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jim, to you, my man, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, one thing I always ask all of my customers and anybody interested in Muller Chokes is, if you get a Muller choke in your gun, I please ask you to at least try it. I'm not saying it because I want everybody to buy a choke. I don't even care so much about the money. I care about you trying it to see the benefits, which is why I give the warranty I do. All I ask is that if you get a Muller choke, put it in the gun based off of what I designed it for, decoy, passing, or UFO. Don't go out and shoot paper with your buddies and be like, oh, that's not as tight as I was hoping for. I don't want it. Or it doesn't look any better than my factory choke. Don't waste your time doing that, because like I said, I've already done way more than you could ever do. Take the choke, take the ammo that I recommend with that choke, and just go shoot ducks or birds with it. And you are going to see immediately, when you pull a trigger, you're going to see the difference. I assure you that. Everybody that's come back to me and thanked me, they're like, dude, I thought you were full of crap. I bought it anyway. I put it in my gun. I will never shoot anything else. It was incredible. That's because they went and used it. Don't go shoot paper and try to make your decision. Don't waste your time. Just go shoot birds. That's what it's for, and that's what it's going to show you the benefits of.
Jim, my plan was, once I get it, I was going to head to my local skeet range, and just like that, I would get a fairly good idea there as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, I'll give you a quick rundown on what I just did recently. my new TSS FU choke, the Muller color, right? We're going to cull some herds of birds with this, so I called it the Muller color. So it's extremely tight. It's designed for 1 ounce to ounce and up to ounce and a half of TSS. It's a laser beam at 75 yards. It's incredible, right? So the reason I designed that was for the people shooting these new Waterfowl TSS loads that are like 1 ounce. A 1 ounce TSS load is like a 5/8 ounce lead load. There's no pellets, or I should say there's like no payload. So you have to really choke it down if you want to shoot far. So I created that. Well, how did I test it after I tested it other ways? I took it out on a sporting clay course. I took my rangefinder. I got a 65-yard chandelle target, open belly, 65 yards. And I said, I'm going to shoot a bunch of these targets and then shoot a piece. So after I break it, I'm going to shoot a piece. And at 65 yards, if I could hit a small piece, I know that I've got really good pattern efficiency at that distance, right? Now, I was shooting lead target loads, 7.5 shot size, right? 1,250 feet per second. I went out and I set the 65-yard chandelle. Every time I hit it, there were no pieces. So I was like, well, I wanted to shoot a piece, but obviously if there's no pieces left, I know it's pretty darn tight.
Yeah.
So it tells you a lot. I could hear the pattern hit the target at 65 yards. And there's no pieces left. So guess what that tells me? It's amazing at that distance.
Yeah.
If I was getting a target to break in 2 big pieces or 3 pieces, and then I couldn't hit a piece, well, I would know the pattern sucks, right?
Right.
But when you hit a target at 65 yards and there's nothing left of it, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
no, 100%.
There's a lot you can tell shooting clay targets with a choke and a load.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this was episode 235. And if you have questions for Jimmy, you can ask on the podcast and commenting, or you can fire Jimmy a message on his socials or through his email. MullerChokes.com is the website. The most important thing I feel that you should take from this episode is that if there's a question that just doesn't, if something just doesn't sound right to you, then fire Jimmy a message, because he probably has the answer for you. He's probably done the work for you. If you take nothing out of this episode, take that. If there's a question, if there's something that you want further explanation on, reach out to Jimmy, because I promise you he's got the answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not experts, unlike Jimmy. Jimmy's a fucking expert. We are not experts. We'll never pretend to be experts. We're a group of friends that absolutely love getting together and talking anything bird hunting, duck hunting specifically. Big love. Surround yourself with good people, and we'll see you again next week. Ciao.
Thanks, guys.